Chapter 1, Ashford Bay. Part 7. The Harbor Committee. By 7 the town hall had collected the kind of damp that gets into a man's collar and reminds him who pays for the roof. Folding chairs made 2 nervous rows under a pair of ceiling fans that believed in discipline more than air. A chalkboard listed Harbor Committee, agenda in a hand that wished it were a typewriter. The last line, Accounting Irregularities, was written small enough to pass for shyness. Men arrived in 2s and 3s, hats in hand, voices set to the key of civic patience. Fishermen kept to one side in boots, men who owned boats instead of working them kept to the other in shoes. Father Thomas took a seat in the back, long coat folded like a verdict. Sheriff Harvey stood near the door, hat off, eyes doing their inventory. Eli Morse sat at the front table with a ledger that wasn't the ledger and a pencil he intended to trust. The bandage had learned his hand since morning. Henry Caldwell came in the way weather does, announced by a change in the room before he crossed the threshold. A suit that knew what it cost. Hair disciplined into success. A signet ring that tapped a quiet beat against his palm when his thoughts outpaced his manners. He nodded to the sheriff, offered a cut of his smile to the priest, and let the fisherman feel the weight of his attention without spending any of it. "Gentlemen," he said, taking the chair at the table no chair argued with. "We will be brief. The festival's upon us and I won't keep men from work that will put bread on their tables." A murmur allowed that bread was still of interest. "The first orders of business," he went on, "concern the pilings at Dock 3 and the lanterns for the blessing of the fleet. Mr. Morse has invoices." Eli rose. His neatness had been pressed in with a hot iron. Dock 3 repairs were paid out of sequence due to material delays. Lantern oil accounted for. He didn't look at me, he looked 2 inches above my hat. Receipts available upon request. "And the last item," Henry said, a hand hovering over the chalk letters like a man deciding whether to wipe them away, "will be taken up in committee after adjournment." "Which committee?" asked a voice with iron in it. A man from the back row stood, broad, sun-bit, the look of somebody who had negotiated with nets longer than with men. "The kind that has names, or the kind that has doors?" "That will do, Tom," Father Thomas said mildly. "No, Father," the fisherman said, hat turning in his hands like it wanted to leave. "This is counting, not confession." He looked at Henry. "We hear there's pages gone." "An administrative matter," Henry said, smiling without warmth. "The ledger was damaged. We are preserving what remains." Eli cleared his throat at the wrong time and found his voice already waiting. "A page for this week is temporarily removed for conservation." There was water. "Water," Sheriff Harvey repeated, tasting the word. "In a locked office." Eli's bandaged fingers made a small, unhappy fist. "Condensation through the wire glass can." "Ruin ink," Henry supplied smoothly. "Exactly. We are acting to prevent loss." He turned the smile on the room as if it were a coin he enjoyed. "Nothing sinister about keeping good books." A chair scraped. I didn't need to turn to know the sound of a man who disliked his seat and his skin in equal measure. Richard Caldwell came in late and brought the doors cold with him. The scar along his cheek hadn't made peace with the rest of his face. He stood a second too long before choosing a place against the wall where he could watch his father without interfering with him. Henry's eyes acknowledged the son the way a general acknowledges a lieutenant he didn't assign to this campaign. "We'll move to adjourn," he said. "All in favor?" "Hold," Sheriff Harvey said, pleasant as rain. The word made the room blink. "Before you adjourn any irregularity, Mr. Caldwell, I'll put one question on the record." Henry's smile thinned. "Of course, Sheriff." "Where is the church's copy of this week's ledger?" Harvey asked. Silence tried to look like thought. Father Thomas folded his hands. "The sacristy shelf where it rests between festival blessings shows a gap. A committee has borrowed it." "Which committee?" Harvey asked again, taking the fisherman's line and spooling it without apology. A subcommittee, Henry said. For lantern allocations. Lanterns that now require ledgers, Harvey said. Richard laughed once without finding humor. We're talking about oil while a man's gone off the teeth, he said, voice fast and not entirely under command. It's obscene. We are talking about order, Henry said, the edge under the velvet showing. Which keeps other men from joining him. Richard's hand went to his pocket and came out with a pen that hit the table and bounced. The sound was minor. The room made it major. He didn't pick it up. Eli, pale to the edges, fussed with his papers. A corner slipped and showed a smaller corner beneath, torn, tide-stained, the ghost of pencil numbers making one last stand against white. He covered it fast. Too fast. Mr. Morse, I said, before Prudence could close my mouth, when you remove a page for conservation, do you remove corners first? Harvey didn't look at me. He looked at Eli, who had found the limit of his neat and met it. Answer. Eli licked his lips. Paper weakens irregularly. I keep pieces to match them later. And where do you keep them? Harvey asked. Eli began, and then the door opened hard enough to claim its share of the conversation. Jimmy's cap appeared before the rest of him. He panted the way boys pant when they know breath is a currency and they have too much news for their purse. Mr. Caldwell, sheriff, father, sir, he said, taking a chorus of bows in one word. Boatman says a crate washed up near the net loft, busted, with a seal in it, star in a ring, and red paint all over the ropes. He only noticed me after he'd thrown the match into the room. Mr. Reed, he added, as if that explained the weather. There are moments when a town forgets it has rules. Men stood before the chairs had the sense to scrape. Henry Caldwell's hand lifted once, twice, and found itself with fewer disciples than usual. Sheriff Harvey moved toward the boy with an economy that would have looked like patience if you didn't know him. Father Thomas closed his eyes for a beat, perhaps to see if prayer could turn the tide back into itself. Where? Harvey said. Behind the loft, Jimmy said, voice tripping. Tide's pokin' at it like it wants another try. Henry found his command again and put it on like a coat. 2 men to the loft, he said. Morse, stay. Sheriff, do your duty. The rest, go home to your suppers and let the committee finish its work in order. No one believed they were going home. Richard had already moved. The fisherman named Tom set his hat on his head like a decision. The room emptied the way a bottle does when a hand forgets to be gentle. Claire Whitmore had been there, I realized, standing in the doorway's shadow with a notebook smaller than mine and a pencil that didn't waste lead. She looked at me with the briefest hello, as if greetings cost words she needed for later, and then down at the chalk at the bottom corner of the blackboard. Someone had drawn the simple eye with the pupil struck through in a size a man could miss if he wanted to. She tapped it once with the eraser, not hard enough to erase, just enough to see if the mark would move. It didn't. She lifted her eyes to mine and left without saying a sentence. Eli remained, because Henry had said the word and because some men need orders to sit still. His bandaged hand worried the edge of a paper until the paper remembered what it was made of. Harvey stepped close and lowered his voice to the tone that fills rooms anyway. Show me the piece, he said. Eli took out a half of a corner that matched the half in my pocket the way a lie sometimes matches truth by accident. Numbers, 17 crates, and below, a tidy initialing that ended in a line where a letter had started and changed its mind. Who signed? Harvey asked. Hard to say, Eli said. Salt does that. Salt and men, Harvey said. Outside, the town had decided on a destination. Feet went for the wharf like arguments go for heat. Caldwell's voice rose once, high and controlled, then lost to distance. I set my hat, closed my notebook, and met Harvey's eyes for the length of a neutral thought. You come, he said. It wasn't permission. It wasn't a threat. It was logistics. We followed the stream out into the gray that the lamp would soon divide again. Somewhere between town hall and the loft a wind off the Atlantic turned and remembered fall. It lifted the hair on my wrists and put a taste of storm on my tongue. The lighthouse, still daylight dumb, waited for evening to hand it the duty. At the corner by the bakery a fresh chalk mark blinked from the brick at knee height. The crossed-out eye again, this time circled once like a question that wanted to be an answer. I touched it with a fingertip and came away white. This one hadn't seen rain yet. "Keep moving, read," Harvey said without turning. I did. The crowd thinned into silhouettes and the smell of wet rope grew teeth. The loft's backside took shape, and so did the crate tilted in the wash like a man who'd lost his argument with a bottle. The seal rope had been cut and then tied again by someone who didn't want it to look that way. A gull lifted. The crate turned. On the raw plank a smear of red paint fingered the wood, and under it, pressed in while still tacky, the shape of a ring with a star. A second mark, crooked, as if the hand that made it shook. The men on the planks looked at the tide. The tide looked back and didn't blink. The day took one more step toward night, and the lighthouse got ready to speak.